Welcome to Stellar Plots, where every story has a twist. Let's dive in.
I have a sister who is 6 years older than me. Growing up, that age difference meant she was always a few stages ahead in life. When I was starting elementary school, she was already in middle school. When I got into high school, she was leaving for college. And because she was the older sibling, it always felt like she was the center of attention in our family. At first, I didn't think much about it. A lot of families work that way. The oldest child gets more responsibility, more expectations, and sometimes more focus. But as the years went on, I began to notice something that bothered me more and more. Whenever something important happened in my life, my parents somehow ended up canceling on me because of my sister. And it wasn't just once or twice. It happened again and again. I remember one specific moment when I was about 14. I had a basketball game that I had been practicing for weeks. I had finally made the starting lineup, and I was really proud of that. I asked my parents if they could come watch. They told me they would be there. But about an hour before the game started, my phone rang. It was my mom. She sounded apologetic. She said they wouldn't be able to make it because my sister wasn't feeling up to going out tonight. So, they were staying home with her. At the time, I told them it was fine. I tried to act like it didn't bother me. But when the game started, and I looked into the stands, seeing everyone else's parents cheering, while my side of the bleachers was empty, it stuck with me. And that wasn't the only time. There were school events, celebrations, moments that were important to me. And over the years, my parents missed both big and small milestones in my life because my sister was upset about something. Sometimes it was work stress, sometimes it was a bad breakup, sometimes it was just one of her emotional meltdowns. Whatever the reason was, my parents always chose to prioritize her. At first, I tried to be understanding. Families are supposed to support each other. But eventually, it started to feel like my life was always the thing that got pushed aside. After a while, I stopped asking them to come to things. It was easier to just assume they wouldn't show up. Fast forward several years, I met the love of my life. She was kind, supportive, and incredibly patient, especially when it came to my complicated relationship with my family. She was the first person who really listened when I talked about how those years had affected me. When we decided to get married, I was happier than I had ever been. But there was still one thing in the back of my mind that made me nervous. My sister. I had seen enough of her behavior over the years to know that she had a way of turning any situation into something about herself. So early in the wedding planning process, I sat down with my parents and had a very honest conversation with them. I told them my concerns. I explained that I was worried my sister might somehow ruin another major moment in my life. My mom immediately reassured me. She told me over and over again that this time would be different. Nothing is going to interfere with that. I wanted to believe her. And eventually, I convinced myself that maybe things really had changed. The day of the wedding finally arrived. Everything was perfect. The weather was beautiful. The venue looked amazing. And when I saw my fiancée walking down the aisle, I honestly felt like everything in my life had led up to that moment. The ceremony went smoothly, and people were smiling and celebrating. But as the day went on, I started to notice something. My parents weren't there. At first I assumed they were just running late. Weddings can be chaotic, and delays happen all the time. But then my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from my mom. I stepped away from the crowd and listened to it. Her voice sounded nervous. She explained that they weren't going to be able to make it. Apparently, my sister's dog had gotten sick that morning, and my sister was extremely upset. So upset, in fact, that my parents felt they needed to stay home and comfort her. I stood there, staring at my phone. My wedding day, and my parents had decided not to come because my sister's dog was sick. I felt hurt. But more than that, I felt strangely numb. Part of me wasn't even surprised anymore. Still, I didn't want to let it ruin the entire day. My best man noticed that something was wrong. He pulled me aside and asked what had happened. After I told him, he shook his head and said something like, "Man, that's unbelievable." But he didn't push the subject any further. The reception continued, and everyone else seemed to be having a great time. At some point during the evening, my best man approached my wife with an idea. He asked if he could post a short wedding video online as a gift to celebrate the day. She thought it sounded sweet and said yes. I had no idea about any of this at the time. Right after the wedding, my wife and I left for our honeymoon. We rented a quiet cabin next to a lake. It was peaceful, surrounded by trees, and completely disconnected from the outside world. There was no cell service, no internet, just the two of us enjoying the beginning of our life together. For an entire week, we had no idea what was happening online. When we finally came home and my phone reconnected to the network, it immediately started buzzing nonstop. Dozens of texts, missed calls, notifications from social media. At first, I thought something serious must have happened. Then I saw the video. My best man had posted it with the caption, "My best friend, an amazing person, even if his parents never showed up for him." The video was a montage of wedding photos. Pictures of me and my wife. Shots of us laughing, dancing, and cutting the cake. There were photos with her parents standing proudly beside us. But whenever the photos reached a moment where my parents should have been standing there too, those spots were empty. And playing clearly in the background of the video was my mom's voicemail, explaining why they couldn't come. The video had spread much further than anyone expected. Family members from both sides had seen it. Apparently my sister hadn't stopped crying since she found out about it. My mom was so embarrassed that she refused to leave the house. Relatives were begging me to take the video down, but I didn't respond right away. Instead, I set my phone aside and continued enjoying my time with my wife. Eventually, when my vacation ended, I finally called my parents. My dad answered. The first thing he said was that I needed to take the video down. He called it a bad night. Then he promised they would make it up to me somehow. That's when I asked him something simple. How exactly do you plan to make up missing my wedding? A wedding isn't something you can redo. You can't recreate that moment. But my dad just kept repeating that he would make it up to me. So I told him something. I said I would take down the video when he figured out how to make up missing my wedding. After that, the conversation didn't last much longer. We both hung up before things got worse. Now my family says I should have just taken the video down. Maybe they're right. But part of me feels like this was the first time my parents had to actually face the pattern they created. So now I'm left wondering, am I the one who went too far? Or was this simply the moment when years of being overlooked finally caught up with them